So it's exciting to hear that finally something's going to get done as far as the airline industry is concerned and the way passengers have been treated ever since COVID got here. Refunds impossible to get, forever having to wait on a line just to try to get through to someone. And I say try because oftentimes you don't. So yes, new regulations kicking in September the 8th, involving refunds and cancellations and lengthy delays. Thought we'd try to find out more. SYLVIE de Bellefeuille is a lawyer and budget advisor at consommateurs, and she is on the line. SYLVIE, thanks so much for being with us today.
Well, hello, thank you.
Can we start with, yes, this looks in theory like really good news, but everything I'm reading is people saying, yeah, that's all it is theory, and it's not going to play out as well as we think it might.
Yes. Well, first, it's not a new regulation per se. I mean, it's a modification to the regulation because prior to that, it was really during the COVID-19 crisis that we realized that there was a gap in the regulations when it came to cancellations when they were not into the airlines for reasons that were outside of the airline's control. So this is really what will kick in, as you mentioned, this week. So what it requires now is that first, airlines must provide a reservation on a new flight within 48 hours. If not possible, then the passenger will have the choice between either a reimbursement or a rebooking. So it is something that is clearer than it was before, but it's not perfect either.
Will it kind of force the airlines to do a better job, or at least to try harder to accommodate those passengers within 48 hours?
Yes, that's the good news. Now, 48 hours for some people, it is okay. But let's say, for example, that you booked take a flight for Toronto to get to a concert on Saturday. You cannot go, but
Right.
They offer you a new flight on Sunday. So now your plane ticket is useless. So the 48-hour gap can be, in some situations, something that is, very lengthy and will not resolve the problem to a lot of people. And still, the other problem also is that it's the level of compensation that people have the right to obtain depends really on the information that is provided by the airline companies, because if it's for a reason that's without their control, they have less compensation to provide. But if it's something within their control, then you have the right to gain more money. The problem is, how, as a passenger, can you know exactly why your flight is canceled? It really depends on what the air company tells you.
Yeah, which is where the problem lies. We've already heard stories just over the past couple of weeks. The idea that, staffing will count as one of those problems that an airline would use. And people are like, well, wait a sec. If you knew that you were going to have less staff and you knew you had this many flights booked, clearly that's something in your control.
Yes, and that is an issue of interpretation to what or is not within a company's control. And that is something that is very difficult for a passenger to know. And is it because there was a bad planning? And, a lot of companies now still blame the pandemic for their situation. It was true that it was a surprise in 2020. Now, when you're managing a business now, you know that at some point there's going to be some people who will be sick. So it's something that should be planned. So it will really depend on what the CTA, which is the Canadian Travel Agency, will decide on what is or not considered within the passenger's control. And to do so, people will have to file complaints, basically. So it will take time.
Okay, yeah, and we've heard there's up to a year backload to treat those complaints. Back to this 48-hour period, what I'm wondering is, okay, that sounds relatively reasonable, but if you're stuck in an airport and you don't have a hotel and you don't have meals and
Right.
you're incurring expenses, 48 hours can cost you a pretty penny. So what I'm understanding is that that's too bad now, right? You're out of luck.
If it is outside of the airline's control, yes, that's basically what it means. When it is within the airline's control, they do have the obligation to provide people with food and with accommodations regarding a place to sleep, for example.
Okay.
But when it's not within their control, most of the time, as you mentioned, people are left on their own for the accommodations.
Now, I'm sure you've dealt with cases. You've heard from people. We certainly heard all kinds of anecdotal stories about, I was stuck in the airport. The airline said they do one thing, then they didn't do it. Do you really expect this is going to make a difference?
That is a very good question. It's not something that is easy to say. We have normally in law we say that we have to believe in the good faith of the other party. Now, from what we've seen so far, and I've heard horror stories on my side as well, like a person who has 5 different reasons for a flight cancellation. So how is it possible for a person to know really what's going on? It will be on the long, we'll have to wait and see really what will be the effect on that. But at least now the regulation is more precise, because before that it was just, the airline company, we were just saying it's not under control, so we don't even have the obligation to reimburse people. So at least now it's a little bit more specific.
Okay.
All right.
Fingers crossed, I think, even as we talk about this now, because as I said, in theory, this sounds like great. Something's finally starting to happen. We're going to have to wait and see how it plays out. Thank you so much for your time, Sylvie. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.